Welcome back to the Britt Mayer Show. Today we are going to be joined by one of my absolute favorite attorneys, California attorney Nicole Pearson. She is a fearless fighter for all of the rights that really matter to us as conservatives, Christians, parents, concerned citizens of California. She has been fighting for a long time, and I asked her just a minute ago, I don't know how you're still doing it. What is your secret? Because she is amazing. Now, she is going to walk you through 5 bad bills that are currently making their way through the California Legislature. A few of them you've probably heard of, and then there are a few that you probably are going to find yourself with your jaw on the floor thinking, how are these going through the legislature, and why is this the first time that I've heard it? Now, I want you to listen all the way through, because at the conclusion, she is going to walk you through how all of these 5 bills are connected and have a very insidious agenda behind them. That they aren't just disconnected bad bills, but they are very strategically connected, and how this affects you living in California and living outside of California. So I encourage you to, wherever you are listening from, please subscribe, leave a good review. Those really do help people find us. And then listen all the way through. In the show notes, I have loaded it with so much information that Nicole and I both have cultivated, curated for you, because this matters. We are on the finish line of this race of the California legislative season, and there is a lot at stake. So with no further ado, here's my conversation with California attorney Nicole Pearson. Hey mamas, I'm Britt. I'm a Christian mom and a journalist, and I am busy, especially during the summer. I'm always chasing wellness for me and for my family, and that's why I don't gatekeep. I want to actually share with you what works. Since summer is so busy, I rely on We Heart Nutrition's omega-3 to keep my heart, my brain, and my mood strong, and I truly love this product. From wild caught, anchovy, sardine, and mackerel, there's no fishy aftertaste because they put this great lemon essence in it. Now, you know I'm all about the research, and the research shows omega-3s cut triglyceride levels by up to 30% and reduce heart disease risk, which is really vital for women who juggle stress. A 2019 study found that 1 gram daily lowers heart attack risk by 9%. And for us moms, DHA supports brain health. It eases brain fog, while EPA fights inflammation, and that helps with mood swings or joint pain. And studies also suggest that omega-3s may lower the breast cancer risk, which is awesome. We Heart Nutrition donates 10% of sales to pro-life pregnancy centers, which aligns with my values, so you can add their omega-3s to your routine, knowing that you're supporting a company that aligns with your values and doesn't fight against it. Head to weheartnutrition.com and use code ROOTEDWINGS for a discount to keep you thriving. That's weheartnutrition.com, code ROOTEDWINGS. Nicole Pearson, I am so excited to sit down with you. Finally, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute since the last time we had one of these, so I'm ready to bring it. I should have had a cup of coffee because we're going to need it to get through everything. Okay, you're on number 3. I've got my ice water because my air conditioning went out. I didn't tell you that in the green room. So I have like an ice pack on my lap because my studio is so hot right now. So we're going to get through this. Okay. This is a super, super important conversation for Californians who care anything about our future. You always know what's going on with the California Legislature, and you, for a long time, have had your fingers on bad bills, very bad bills that go through. So we are going to talk about 4 really bad bills that are going through the California Legislature, and why parents and people who are concerned about California need to know about this and what we can do about it. So we're going to be talking through AB 84, AB 727, AB 495, AB 1084, and SB 59. And I want people who are listening right now and are thinking, oh no, I'm going to tune out. That sounds like way too much. Do not, because Nicole is going to break it down so that it's bite-sized language, so you really get a full picture of what's going on and how it's all connected. And they want you to feel overwhelmed. So we are going to deconstruct it so that you're not overwhelmed and so that you know what you can do. So Nicole, welcome.
Thank you. Just a small mission that we have.
Small mission. We've been doing this for a long time. I don't know how you're still doing it. And on top of being a California attorney.
Well, 3 cups of coffee definitely helps. And then working with people like you and having the army that we built up is definitely very, very helpful and hopeful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, do you have hope about what you're seeing right now? Do you think that we're going to make it through this legislative season, or is this the
Yes.
end?
No, it's not the end because they're getting more and more egregious and greedy. And really, the attack on the kids has gone up just so obviously that people can't deny it anymore. And so we're getting messages, we're getting support, and we're getting amplification across platforms and with organizations that I've never thought would ever come to the table. So I'm actually grateful for how demonic and evil these people are because it's actually working to our advantage.
Good. Okay, so we're not packing up quite yet.
Not yet.
Hey, what
I'm
do you
not.
think about? Okay, before we get into it, I'm going to
Yeah.
just come out of the gates rolling. So I heard Pastor Jack Hibbs, who is one of the loudest Christian voices in California. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, he said on, I think it was a Saturday night, and then he reasserted his position following that. And he said, if AB 495 passes, which we will get into, he said basically pack up your bags, leave the church, and leave California. Do not stay. And then people were like, I can't believe you said that. And then he doubled down and said, no, I said what I said, leave California. Do you agree with that? Is it that bad?
I do not agree with that. For respectfully, I love Pastor Jack, and I'm so grateful for all he is doing. And so I'm not, fighting with him or anything at all in that, in that regard. But nope, it's just a simple fact that nobody is safe if AB 495 passes. California is a sanctuary state. That means that any child can be brought here and then be subjected to AB 495. I can go over the bills that created this very dangerous bubble here. And basically the fact that, Gavin Newsom has declared war on the U.S. Constitution and the laws and orders of other states. So no child is safe. So really it doesn't matter where we go. And if we all leave, then we're giving up a really strong foothold in freedom and in our, in our democratic republic, and we're at war. So we just can't give up the strongholds in this battle.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's talk through the alarming trends that you are seeing right now. Just overall, before we start to break down the bills, what trend are you seeing being pushed through the California legislature right now?
I mean, truly, it's just they want to emancipate minors. If I had a theme, the theme is to emancipate minors. We already have laws in California that say mature 12-year-olds can make very serious, lifelong, irreversible medical decisions for themselves. And then on top of that, just recently, we passed laws that said these same mature 12-year-olds can seal their medical records. So it started with that. It started with mental health services, substance abuse, then it bled into sexual reproductive health care. As you guys know, they tried in 2022 with SB 866, Senator Scott Wiener's bill. He said he wanted to allow mature 12-year-olds to consent to COVID-19 vaccines. But if you actually read the bill, it was to all vaccines. And we defeated that bill. So to your point, or our earlier point, that we are winning. In the height of COVID and against Scott Wiener, we were able to defeat that very demonic and very illegal and unconstitutional bill. We were able to defeat it. So children cannot do that. But you and I know that if they can consent to mental health services and substance abuse rehabilitation services and sexual reproductive health care, and then if they had been able to consent to all vaccines, then why not gender affirming healthcare? And so you will just see this steady progression of expanding the rights of minors. And it's not that I don't want children to have voices and to be heard, but truly a 12-year-old is not in the position to be making these decisions. Certainly they won't be taking care of themselves if they make a bad decision. And that is just really just running afoul of the U.S. Constitution and over 100 years of U.S. Supreme Court precedent protecting parental rights.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the attack, especially in California, is so hell-bent on that divider between parents and children? What is that? Like, in all of your research, have you figured out what's the end goal with that?
I think that California is such a huge battleground because people just will not leave. Like, we love California. Same with New York. New Yorkers love New York and they just will not go no matter how bad it gets. So I think just from just like that principle, entry level concept. So people will put up with a lot to stay in this state. There's a lot of money here. So people can also pretend, at least for a little bit of time, that they can pay their way out of the systems, either with private schools or tutoring, or, when they were trying to do the COVID-19 mandates, fly private, do all these buy fake cards there. So there's a lot of people who are trying to work out of, pay, and opt out of the system. So the hammer doesn't ever really fully drop in California because there's so many people who are allowed to work out a way like around the systems. So I think just those kind of like logistical things are what allow this place to be such a cesspool and just kind of the launch pad for all these really terrible laws.
Yeah, but what is it, Nicole? Why do they want so bad to separate the parent from the child in California? What are they trying to accomplish with that? Because we have seen it time and time again that they are trying to construct a government built wall between parents, parental authority, and the kids. So why? What does that open the door to? What is their big plan with that?
I mean, I'm already going to start crying. We're only 7 minutes into our interview. It just depends on where you are, like in your faith. And, politically, there are just a lot of different theories on why this is happening. So let's just put, religion and faith out of it. Just from a purely logistical standpoint, if we have 12-year-olds deciding what drugs and therapies they can take and they're opting themselves into the medical system to be lifelong medical patients. We already know, we've seen this all happening where they're poisoning our air, our water, our food. They're giving us drugs that we don't need. Then all of a sudden we have these conditions that are, keep reoccurring conditions. And then you have to go get treated. So we've seen, I think through COVID was a blessing and a curse. I always say that, where we just see how the medical system is actually designed, our food, our ag, all of this is designed to make us sick and then make us run to the medical practitioners who, instead of actually treating the root cause of the problem, are giving us medications and Band-Aids, pun intended, and create lifelong medical patients, and then obviously billing trillions of dollars off of our back. So the younger that we can get these people into the system, then the better. So if we have 12-year-olds, if deciding what kind of sexual reproductive health care they need, birth control, they're getting abortions, gender affirming health care, if you can call it that, substance abuse, we have these 12-year-olds deciding, opting themselves into the system. Money. Number two, if we had them, for example, electing to get the vaccines, we would have had them also opting into that digital vaccine passport. We would have had them agreeing to opt themselves into these government-run tracking programs. Control, because you can monitor people, you can control them by telling them where they can and cannot go, depending on what they consume or don't consume. And then the last thing, so money, power, control, or money and control. And then if you, that's the ultimate power. And if you are religious, then even if you're not religious, like this is a common, you have done interviews and research on this, Britt, I already know. It is just entry, communism 101. You go in, you attack the nuclear family. You alienate the children from the parents. I mean, if we look back at Maoist China, when they had that revolution, we had children who were ratting out their parents being drugged from their homes, their children screaming, shouting, and cheering that their parents were being drugged to prison. We had the erasure of the 4 pillars of that culture, and that's how you really are able to attack people, right? And children are the lowest common, or the low hanging fruit. They're the way. The sooner that you can get into their minds, into their schools, their books, their materials, their conversations, you can start manipulating them, alienating them from their parents, breaking up the family. And when you have that kind of chaos and that kind of friction between between families, united we stand, divided we fall. But that is the ultimate way to just break everybody apart and attack them, and then do whatever it is that you think that the government would want to do with weak, subservient, scared, depressed people.
Yeah. There's a quote somewhere, and I don't remember now. It might be Saul Alinsky, but it's emasculated liars are easy to control. So if you emasculate people, men, women, parents, and then you make them believe lies, and then they're just pawns in your hand to your whatever the end game is, which is so sick. But it's like, I don't see how there's anything good. Like if you tried to take the opposite position, right, and think like, no, maybe they really are trying to like build up a better future for California. It's like you can't even like paint a picture of that. I don't even know like what mental gymnastics you would have to do to try to convince me that there's actually an end game in all of this that is a net positive, which is what's so disturbing. So obviously, like you see from all of your legal battles, that there is a trend that fits into a broader plan of control and government overreach in California.
Yeah, money control, power, and I just want to be transparent with you. Well, you already know this, but your viewers or your listeners, like my background is in immigration and anti-human trafficking. My mom is an immigrant, and I've always done that work because I have a heart for it. And immigration typically dovetails a lot with human trafficking. A lot of people think of child sex trafficking, especially in the last couple of years, but most of that is, about 60% of it is labor trafficking, like people being brought to different countries, especially in California, for labor, for purposes of labor. And then that can include sex trafficking, whether it's an adult or a minor, and then also organ harvesting and blood harvesting. There's a lot of that. And so, if you have children especially, who are ripped from their homes, alienated from their parents. And this is why the laws are important, because right now you can't do that, because to your point, it doesn't make any sense. No one would agree to it. That's why they have to try to pass laws to start to shift our perception, our reality to, oh, well, the 12-year-olds do this. They can consent to this. And so it's kind of like a back channeling way of shifting the reality and shifting truth through the legislative process. So if we accept these laws as true, then our cases will turn out differently. Our rights obviously are structured differently, and then just society will be structured differently. So, I also do, at the end of the day, believe their goal is to just separate everybody from any sense of identity, gender fluidity. You can choose your gender, that changes all the time. Sense of family, of unity, and that identity as well. And just leave people, isolate them, again, so that they're able to be manipulated and controlled and then used to the government's devices, whether it's making money, whether it's testing medicine, experiments, whether it's using them for trafficking or organ harvesting or whatever it is. Like, you just want people as weak and isolated as possible. That is the most vulnerable individual. And that's what I think all of this, everything that you ever talk about, that goes to. Because again, united we stand and divided we fall.
I think that's why it's so important to hit on why California is so important to not allow it to be conquered. Because if they conquer California, it will absolutely spread to the rest of the nation. I mean, Newsom is soft campaigning for president. And they've already said that it's likely going to be Vance versus Newsom for the next round. So we know that he wants this for the rest of the nation. I mean, he did it to San Francisco. He did it now to California as a whole. That's the next step. So I think that's why it's so important to not cede territory and think that we can just run away from it. Because if we run away and we let them conquer us here in California, this is just like the first rung of the ladder, right? Totally. And then it's just it will just spill over, which is why we need to have our eyes on what they're trying to do right now.
Right. But just to that point, and that is an extremely, this is his test case. And he will say, look what I did in California. He's a sociopath. He's gaslighting everybody, telling us that this is like the strongest economy and homelessness is, he's insane. But he will be able to point to his policies and then, like you said, roll them out nationally. But that's actually something to our advantage right now, because he's in the hot seat. Everybody is watching him. So when we have controversial bills like the ones we're going to talk about today, and he has in the past spoken out, for example, for the children who are survivors of human trafficking, like SB 14 and SB 1414, Senator Shannon Grove's bill. And now we have AB 495 coming, and now we have AB 1084. And we have these bills that put vulnerable children at risk. We can piggyback on those efforts that he's made in the past to protect kids in those instances, to try and help us here, have him force his hand to come out and take a stand against these bills and help us kill the bills, have the authors perhaps pull the bills before they come to his desk. And that's
especially if he wants any chance, because I think the rest of the states know that California, with this, what we're going to cover right now, California has lost its flipping mind. And
Yeah,
so
it's
if
bad.
he wants any chance at winning over the nation as a presidential candidate, he's going to have to like take a stand on this because they are that insane. So let's go into AB 84 first. We're going to go through all of these and we're going to see why this is a communist agenda that covers education, parental rights, transgender issues, and they're all guises. I want to make that really clear. When you hear, oh, it's education, no, that's a guise for communism. When you hear parental rights, again, they're running it, it's a guise for all of these are they're Trojan horses. That's what all of these bills are, to create what Nicole was talking about, an ultimate goal to fully disrupt the family unit, to destabilize, to isolate, and to really hand kids over to the hands of the state, which, like she said about Mao, you look at Nazi Germany, like this is the game plan. This is the way it works. So let's first talk about Assembly Bill 84, which you and I have covered this over the last month. It was all over the news in California. This has to do with charter schools. It is run as increasing regulations on charter schools, including stricter auditing, credentialing, oversight fees. Talk to us about Assembly Bill 84 and how this threatens parental choice in education.
So before we go into it, I need people to understand that they're never going to come out and say, we're legally emancipating your 12-year-olds. They're never going to say, we're stripping you of your parental right to decide what kind of education your child receives, which is fundamental, basic human right, a parental right, like I mentioned before, that the U.S. Supreme Court has unequivocally defended for over 100 years. Your right to direct the education and upbringing and care, meaning education, religion, the way that you live your life, like at Amish, for example, your kind of like your family culture, and also your the medical care of your child is integral. Like that is what it means to be a parent. And you guys need to understand, you do not need to apologize. You don't need to justify your like that is something that is innate in you as a human being, regardless of your political affiliation, religious, anything. That is something that is you have it's born into, and the U.S. Constitution recognizes that. Even the the Constitution has recognized that and protected that, and certainly the U.S. Supreme Court has defended. So with that in mind, then that's the framework. So it is, like you said, it's just a shocking attack. So AB 84 is a bill that is allegedly written by Al Maritsucci, who is the assembly member from South Bay, like Manhattan Beach, El Segundo area. He is running against Sonia Shaw, God bless her soul, 2026, the superintendent of public instruction in 2026. Okay, so watch this bill, watch Al Maritsucci. Between you and me, he did not write this bill. Okay, this is a teachers union, a CTA, California Teachers Union bill. He is a shill. He is a puppet for them in order to get their support, their money, their backing. He is literally putting the news around himself and his campaign by promoting and offering and authoring AB 84. So AB 84, again, they're not going to tell you, we're taking away your right to decide to charter or homeschool your child. But what we're going to do is make it impossible for charter or homeschools to exist in California. So they're going to strangle them out of existence by forcing them to comply with not just the same, but actually more rigorous standards and requirements than current traditional public schools. And so it's, like you said, under the guise of transparency and accountability, but really they are holding them to standards that even traditional public schools are not held to. And we operate at 50% margins. Like we can't do that. Even if we wanted to, we cannot meet the requirements that AB 84 will impose on charter schools and in turn homeschools and their vendors.
An important thing with that too, because I homeschool my kids. It's all I've ever done. I wasn't a COVID homeschooler. I decided not to do the system very early on. So my kids have never been in any form of public school. I sit on the board of, I was telling you this in the green room, and we're friends, so we talk, but I sit on the board of a high school co-op that also is a co-op that flies under the radar of all the state nonsense. And we do that because the state is insane. And so I don't want my kids in any public indoctrination camp at all. And I want, when they're in high school, I don't want them in any indoctrination camp in high school either. I didn't work this hard to then throw them, to the wolves. But the domino effect of AB 84 is what I want you to talk about, because I think that people need to realize that this isn't going to just impact homeschoolers, that this impacts the whole scope of education in California.
Well, if you watch the trend, so basically this bill, so I'll tell you the real story. I'll tell you their story and then the real story. So they claim that this bill was enacted to combat fraud that is, running rampant throughout the charter school system. There was a terrible case in about 2019 where a charter school program misappropriated, embezzled about $40 million of state funds. It was horrible. Guess who sounded the alarm on that? Charter schools, because we don't get a lot of money from the state. So we didn't want people, and I also charter school co-op my children as well. I don't think I do the same extent of homeschooling as you do, but I'm also out of the traditional public school system. And so they did they implemented a moratorium. So since 2019, there have been no new charter schools that have been authorized. And in the meantime, they've been coming up with this law to try and address that rampant fraud that happened in this one instance. By the way, charter schools sounded the alarm on this fraudulent charter school program. Number two, existing laws were activated and they were implemented to apprehend the individuals who were responsible and to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, and all of the money was returned. So as a preliminary matter, and we'll talk about it in these other bills like AB 495, this bill is completely unnecessary. We already have the tools and laws and systems in place to deal with the situation. So whether the existing, California agencies are doing their job is one thing, but whether we need to create new laws to help them do their job is another thing. We don't. We just need them to do their actual job.
Okay, so let's talk about what is then with AB 84. What is the actual game plan? Why are they ramming an unnecessary bill through? What's the actual thing that they are trying to accomplish with this?
They are trying to run charter schools out of business, which will in turn run their vendors out of business by, again, creating impossible hurdles for them to, or, checklists for them to achieve or accomplish or satisfy, and in turn run their vendors out of business, which will in turn run homeschools out of business, right? Because a vendor is, for example, like a music teacher or an equestrian center for children who need therapy, or a speech therapist, an art center program. Those are just some examples of what a vendor would be, that where your child goes to your charter school and then kind of supplements that education with these vendors. So they want to again, backdoor, want to run everybody out of business. The reason is what we've seen, what happened in COVID. They are bleeding. The public school system is bleeding. Enrollment rates are they're not declining. They are plummeting. And so the CTA is panicking because the money is following the children, right? If they have lower enrollments, then they can't ask for as much funding. So how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to just shut down the competition. If you don't have charter schools and homeschools as options to put your children in, then you're going to be forced to go into the traditional public school system. And a lot of people don't have the resources that you and I might have to go to a private school. And that's the thing, right? So the alternative would be a very expensive private school or the failing public school system. I mean, look at the U.S. News and World's ranking. Look at the Stanford study that just came out. And I'll get into that in a second. But they're basically trying to run out the competition. So we're forced back into the dangerous, failing public school system.
Yes. And something that's really important is, because you talked about the private school option. Private school option is not even available if your kid is not fully current on the insane shot schedule. So in California, because they passed this right before COVID, if your kid is not completely compliant on the CDC's recommended childhood vaccine schedule, then you don't get to you can't even go to a charter program that meets on campus a couple days a week. You can't go to any home-based daycare if your kid is not fully compliant. So you certainly cannot go to a private school, because it actually covered private schools too, where you have to be fully compliant with every single shot on that dang schedule. So what it does too is, for all these medical freedom families who woke up even through COVID, they're out of luck. You have nowhere you can send your kid, and now you have to stay home because there's nowhere that you could even pay to send your kid, and you get no state funding. So you're paying taxes to system that then says, we're not going to take your kid. And now you have to pay money out of pocket to homeschool your kid entirely PSA off grid. And your kid will have no socializing, no opportunity. And we're going to crush all these small businesses who have always supported homeschooling families. So it's complete destruction across the board to build up the school system and run out the medical freedom families who have no other way.
And that's a really good point. You know, I didn't even, I mean, I've thought about that obviously, but that's a really, really good point. And I mean, again, going back to the original, you know, kind of theme that we were talking about, this is a way to slowly strip away, just bit by bit, your fundamental rights as a parent to decide if, when, and how you're going to educate your children. They're not going to take your rights away from you. They're going to convince you, like you said earlier, that this is a good idea. I'm not opposed to transparency and accountability. I just think it already exists. Why not do your job and make sure that the transparency and accountability systems that currently exist are being utilized, you know, implemented and enforced to the fullest extent of the law. So it's a ruse. If you look, there was a Stanford study that was just completed in 2023. Charter and homeschool students are across the board outperforming their public school counterparts. Yes. If you look at the U.S. News World and ranking, I mean, California is at the bottom, like in 51, at the very, very bottom. So instead of fixing the system, Al Muratsuchi, who wants to be the superintendent in public instruction, you want to, I mean, this is so classic. This is just so classic leftist mentality. Instead of fixing the problem, we're going to get rid of the evidence or the comparators that just highlight the disparity, that just highlight how defective our leadership and our policies actually are. I mean, that is like,
that is crazy.
Classic.
It is like in a science experiment. It's like tossing out the test group because it's performing so well.
Totally.
That you're like, oh wait, stop, shut down the test, the test, put everyone into the control group, stop, kill it. It's over.
Kill them.
It's too good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sick. Okay, we can laugh, but it is super disturbing. So AB 84, guys, Assembly Bill 84 will completely crush homeschools. It's going to crush so many small businesses who rely on homeschools because of the way that vendorship works in California with charter funding. And then it's going to force so many families who have medically fragile children or are for medical freedom and don't want their kid to get every dang shot on the schedule. It's going to force them to either have to file a PSA, which is you're fully off-gridding then. You have no accountability whatsoever. You have to homeschool at home. Your kid gets zero socializing support. It's going to force those families to do that or leave California. Those would be your only options.
Right.
Okay.
And by the way, just very quickly, two things. They make it impossible for people to live in California. Look at the gas hike. Look at all the taxes. So who can just say, okay, I'm going to give up my full-time job now because I have to homeschool my child? That is a extremely small percentage of the California population. So that's not what you just said is not even a realistic option for like 96% of Californians. Number one, I made up that statistic, so nobody come after me. I made it up, but that just feels right. Number two, we're not just talking about medically fragile children. We are talking about foster care children. We're talking about incarcerated youth. We're talking about children of military families who have to move with their parents, and they choose a national charter school program that allows them to move with their parents. We're talking about children from lower socioeconomic status families, immigrant families, English second learner. I mean, this is another classic leftist move where they claim that they want to help these people, but then those are the communities that will be completely annihilated and abused and left behind, completely shut out of the system because of the same policy that they claim. I mean, it's typical, like I said, it's a very democratic move. And these are the communities that they claim to represent and advocate for and want to protect. And these are the exact types of communities who rely on the charter school system. Immigrants, farm workers who cannot take their child 2 hours into town. They work on a farm in Central California. You will see in the California Assembly, if you watch the debate, there were Democratic Assembly people. This bill is going to die. If people get on the horns and start calling their senators, this bill will die because there are Democrats who are like, I represent Latinos. I represent immigrants. I represent farm workers. I represent, like I said, people incarcerated. Exactly. I can't shut down the only educational option for these families in Central California, in the Valley, in the mountains, whatever the case may be. So there are Democrats who are opposed to this bill. Even if they don't vote no, but they're going to abstain on this bill because they are going to be, again, eliminating the only educational option for their constituents. So it's a very bad bill, and it affects the most vulnerable children in our communities who need this type of education most, including children with unique and special, medical needs.
Yeah, it's the next step at completely doing away with homeschooling in California, which we knew was coming. What's the next step for Assembly Bill 84?
So Assembly Bill 84 is going to be heard. Assembly Bill 84 is going to be heard on Monday, August 18th in the Senate Appropriations Committee. So it already flew through the Assembly. It barely made it out of the Assembly, right? So you have policy committees, and it goes to the Assembly floor. Like I just said, there is a ton of, it's bipartisan opposition to this bill. They left the vote open, the longest that any bill has been left open for vote, to coerce the last remaining votes to support the bill or stay off of the bill so that it could pass out of the Assembly and head over to the Senate. So now it's going Monday, the 18th of August, to the Senate Appropriations Committee. It's another policy committee. We are not sure. I mean, listen, we're facing, I don't even know, Britt, $250 billion debt in California. This bill, according to my calculations and experts, is going to cost approximately $100 million, upwards of 60, up to $100 million a year, taxpayer dollars a year to implement. I do not know how the Senate Appropriations Committee can pass this bill, but we live in California, so Lord only knows. But we need to get on the horn, call our senators, call the Senate Appropriations Committee's members, tell them we oppose this bill. You need to oppose it. If they tell you you're not a constituent, you can say you're voting on a bill that affects every single person in this state. And so in that regard, this bill, your vote affects me directly, and I'm telling you no. So that's it. If you can attend the hearing, that's on Monday in the morning, 9 a.m.
And I want to say right now, obviously, listen to this entire episode and share it because this is so important. But then check the show notes, because the show notes are going to have all the links and all the Nicole's put it together, and it's amazing. It's going to help you guys so much know exactly what you need to do so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And she's made it so super, super simple for you. So make sure that you check the show notes on all of these bills, what you can do, because it does affect you and your kids and our future in California. And we aren't going down without a fight. Okay, let's talk about Assembly Bill 727, which is advertised as pupil safety with ID cards, which requires student ID cards for grades 7 to 12 to include the 988 suicide and crisis lifeline and other hotlines, encouraging resources for LGBTQ students. So break down Assembly Bill 727.
So what they want to do for grades 7 and up is to make it mandatory to put the Trevor Project's information on the back of every single student ID. So again, if you've been watching what's going on in California, there has been a litany of bills. AB 1955 says that teachers can lie to parents, teachers can have private conversations, identities for your children, clubs, libraries, create, alienate your children from you and then lie about it. That's AB 1955. We have AB 665 that passed last year also that says your child, once they've created this really tense, situation in your home because they've, gotten to your child, manipulated them, and convinced them to live a lie that makes it uncomfortable to be at home with you. AB 665 allows your child to run away from home for any reason and check into a government shelter. So, what's going to make that more convenient? How are they going to be able to find these government shelters where an adult can get to them and change their birth records, which we'll get to in a second, AB 223? Well, why not give them the Trevor Project number on the back of their identification card where they can check into chat rooms without any proof of age, proof of identification, and start having more conversations, inappropriate conversations to confuse them more, alienate them more from you. And then
let's back up for a second for people who might not be familiar with the Trevor hotline. I know, because you and I swim in this stuff, so I'm like, oh my gosh, the Trevor hotline. But I have I've had people who will say, well, that's like, it's helpful. Like that's for people who are struggling and they don't know who to turn to. And so there's this great hotline that helps the LGBTQ plus youth. What's the truth about this hotline?
I mean, it's the same with any of these policies, right? So first of all, I don't think there was any good intentions behind the Trevor Project. However, let's just say we want, listen, I want children to be supported and safe. Okay, that's 100%. That's all I do for my work. But creating a space where adults, where there's, again, like I said, no proof of ID, no age verification requirement, where anybody can create a profile, there's no monitoring, and then on top of it, so you have now adults who can access children who are speaking to adults in secret, without knowing who individuals are, and creating, number one, is inappropriate and dangerous in and of itself. But then we have rooms for furries. We have rooms for if you want to be matched with your master. You guys, don't take my word on it. Just go create a profile.
With your master?
Free. Oh, yeah. If you want to act like a pet or an animal and you're looking for a master, there are chat rooms. There are community groups for that. If you like boys on boys, girls on girls, I don't even know all the terms at this point because there are so many.
I know, there's so many.
Day. But my point to you is this. I want these children to have safe and healthy tools to support them when they are feeling whatever they're feeling. Confused. But having sexually inappropriate chat rooms with potential adult predators is not the way to go. Don't take my word for it. Do not take after you guys get off this podcast, go Google Trevor Project, create a profile. It takes 18 seconds. I know because I did it myself. And you will start chatting with anyone about anything, and no one is supervising. That to me is not safe. And that to me just exposes children of whatever age, like I said, no age verification, to a host of inappropriate individuals and subjects that are only going to endanger them more.
So the whole goal with AB 727 is to require this hotline to be exposed to all students, 7 through 12.
It will be printed. It will be required that the information be printed on every child's identification card. You cannot opt out of it, grade 7 and up.
It just makes me, I just get so mad. I knew I was going to get mad during this interview, but I'm like, this ice is starting to melt on my lap because I'm getting fired up. Right now, what is on the ID cards? Do you know?
No, I actually don't know. In terms of mental health services, is that what you're referring to? I actually don't know what's currently on the back of the cards. We can put that in the show notes afterwards.
We'll put it in the show notes.
I do know that it has changed, and with COVID, with all of the mental health issues that our children were experiencing because of the psychological warfare that they waged against our children, they did change what's on the back of California school cards. So identification cards.
Okay, so in California, as of August 2025, student ID cards for grades 7 to 12 in public, private, and charter schools are required to include the 988 suicide and crisis lifeline number per Senate Bill 1063, which was signed into law in 2024. This updated previous requirement in 2018 to print the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number, which remains active, but's now been replaced by the shorter 988 number. So that is, okay, so AB 727, Gonzalez discussed that these requirements were needing expansion to focus on LGBTQ plus students facing bullying or bias through specific hotline numbers, including the Trevor Project. So that's the whole thing is, okay, now we have these numbers which cover everyone, but we need even more. That's going to let kids enter chat rooms with adults who can be their master over their furry self.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and to your point is the resources are already there, and they're there for, again, this is sidestepping parents. Why are we sidestepping parents? Every single person in this country, regardless of their status, I'm talking about immigration or criminal status, is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Why are we giving children resources and access to resources that cut out parents? Why are we always presuming? And if you watch these hearings, and that's why it's so important, when you watch these hearings, they presume the parents are going to abuse, kill, or kick out their child every single time across the board. They take one hellacious, just horrible situation example of when that did happen, when the parents kicked out the child. But the majority of us just want to know. And if a parent it knows, they can actually get their child tools and resources to help them work through. I mean, I've actually, in all of my work, I've never met a parent who has abused or kicked out their child. I mean, it's antithetical to what's actually going on in a majority of the situations. So why are we always allowing the exception to swallow the rule? Again, this is shifting the narrative and just really just shaping reality that parents are dangerous, ruthless predators who are going to abuse their child if their child doesn't comply with their rigid, outdated, conservative values. No, parents just want to know. We just want to be involved in the conversation. Why does California continue to pass laws presuming that parents will be bad and cutting them out of the equation and then inserting these third-party strangers who don't know your child and have zero vested interest in the ultimate outcome of your child?
With a very, very strong sexual agenda
100%.
To replace the parent.
100%. So,
Yes.
for example, like you just mentioned, right now we have a suicide hotline on the back of student ID cards, grade 7.
Multiple. Yep.
Okay, awesome. That is a great situation. Your child is going to kill themselves. Absolutely, let's get them resources. Maybe they don't feel comfortable going to. What does Trevor Project, LGBTQ sexuality have to do? They will always tie it. They say that LGBTQ children are more likely to commit suicide. And so it's they try to make the Trevor Project and these LGBTQ plus resources kind of analogous to these suicide prevention hotlines. But number one, we already have the suicide prevention hotlines. We should only be sidestepping parents in the most severe situations, right? In the event that the child wants to kill themselves because of the parents. Absolutely, let's have that. That's already in existence. It's already in place. And what does it have to do with giving LGBTQ plus services and support to endorse and perpetuate their confusion and their perversion? Like it's not the same. It's not the same at all. And it's not necessary. No. Again.
Yeah. No, it's super, super concerning. So what about AB? So this assembly bill we're talking about right now, 727, with all of this, which would push this hotline onto every single student, grades 7 to 12 in California. It's full exposure of, in my viewpoint, it's just pushing the sexual agenda right into the living rooms of unsuspecting families, even more so. So now it actually trails you outside of the school because now your kid has an ID card with a phone number that's going to put them in a chat group that's super perverted, twisted, weird, without any parental oversight. And it's pushed and funded by our dollars through the school system. It's so freaking sick. It's so evil. But what's the status of this bill, Assembly Bill 727?
It will also be heard on Monday. That's why Monday, August 18th and Tuesday, August 19th are really important days. If you care about these vulnerable children, LGBTQ, undocumented immigrant children, special needs, unique, exceptional needs, foster care children, if you care about children anywhere in the country, you need to be up at the Capitol Monday, August 18th and or Tuesday, August 19th.
Calling yes. religiously, no pun intended, through August 18th.
Absolutely. Yes.
Sending emails. And again, everything will be in the show notes. Yes. Okay. Briefly, let's talk about, just kidding. Briefly is a joke. This is the one that we really want to hit on. Assembly Bill 495. This is the one that everyone is talking about, that Jack Hibbs said, if this passes, you leave California, you pack up, you leave the church. This is the most dangerous bill that Gina Gleason, who is on his team and goes through all the bills, said it's one of the worst she's ever seen come through the California legislature. So let's talk through Assembly Bill 495 and what it actually does. I'm going to let you just, I'm not even going to go through my notes on it because I want you, I know you're so passionate about this, to give the explanation of Assembly Bill 495.
So everybody, okay, so there are already laws in existence. And like I mentioned to you just a second ago, there are already there's a current caretaker's authorization affidavit. Okay, it already exists. It's been around for about 30 years. And what it allows is in emergencies for someone who is related to your child or someone who's not related to your child to step in case of an emergency to make decisions regarding to exercise your parental rights temporarily regarding the education and medical care of your child. So it already exists. Right now, it's limited to relatives. And depending on what information you provide, the relative that is submitting the affidavit can unenroll your child in school and authorize school-related or any other type of medical care, including mental health services and surgeries. That already exists. What Assemblywoman Celeste Rodriguez, and I just want to, for the record, say, I've been asking for a meeting with her. I have offered her my legal services free of charge since July 7th. I have not received a response, so it's full on more. I gave her the benefit of the doubt for a very long time. It's clear she does not want to protect children, especially the children of undocumented workers. So we're going full bore on this one, okay? Celeste Rodriguez, let's call it what it is, wants to do several things. Number one, she wants to expand the definition of relative. Right now, it's anybody, grand, great, step, and ex. She wants to do everybody, aunt, uncle, first cousin, grand, great, step, and ex. So your great-grandpa's ex-wife stepson, okay, can fill this out currently. And she wants to multiply it to the 5th degree.
Wait, currently all of those people can.
That's current.
This is what's going to be shocking for so many parents in California to know that this already exists. Because when I've been telling people about this and I explain, no, the affidavit system already exists. This just expands it. People have no clue that this already exists.
Correct. And so the other thing I want to say is I made this up myself. Okay, so I went to the bill and I created based on what the current affidavit is. So I've taken this language from the bill and I've created a similar looking affidavit based on what currently is in circulation. If you Google caretaker's authorization affidavit, the first link that will pop up is California Courts Self-Help Division. And so this is there because, again, it's a self-help tool. So on the front is the affidavit and on the back are these notices that we'll go through in a second. So I just want to be clear to your listeners, your viewers, that according to AB 495, relatives will mean an adult who is related to the child by blood, adoption, or affinity within the 5th degree of kinship. So that does not exist currently in the law, including step parents, step siblings, all relatives whose status is preceded by the words great and great, great, or grand, or the spouse of any of these persons, even if the marriage was terminated by death or dissolution. Dissolution is divorce, which would mean your great-great-granddad's ex-wife's stepson. Well, to the 5th degree. So she's taking what currently exists and multiplying it out by the 5th degree. I did a chat GPT calculation. I said, based on the average family size, of American family size, what would this definition, how many individuals would this entail? And they told me over 4,700 individuals. That was what I got. Greg Britt of California Family Council got like 830. So I don't know what we did in our I need a better subscription maybe to ChatGPT. But even if it's 800 people or 300 people, this is dangerous. So with this,
let's take, based on what you just said, let's explain what the affidavit does. Like what, okay, so we currently have affidavits in California that are still psycho. We didn't know that we had these. Okay, no. We're going to talk about what the affidavit actually does. But now we're talking about AB 495, which Jack Hibbs has said, if it passes, you leave. Okay, AB 495 will expand upon these affidavits that we currently have in California. What does an affidavit do? Why does this matter? Why are we talking about affidavits?
An affidavit allows an adult with whom your child is residing to exercise your parental rights in terms of the education and the medical care of your child. It's supposed to be temporary. It's not supposed to supersede your rights and your decisions as a parent. But if an adult comes with an affidavit currently and brings it to the school, they can enroll and unenroll your child in school and authorize school-related medical treatment for your child. Currently, if a relative uses, so that's any adult currently. If a relative comes with the existing affidavit, then they can take the same affidavit, provide a little bit more information, and then take it to any medical provider in the state. However, as I just mentioned to you, the definition of relative is a reasonable one that's used across many areas of law, and that's the traditional definition of relative. What AB 495 wants to do is expand the definition of relative to include potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals tangentially related or perhaps not even related at all to your child. And I'm not even done. And add a new type or category of individuals who can use the affidavit. And that type of individual is a non-relative extended family member. Okay, so a non-relative extended family member is an oxymoron. That doesn't exist. If you're not a relative, you're not a family member. But she wants to take this term from the foster care system. She's co-opting it. So now that non-relative, thousands of relatives to the 5th degree of kinship can use the affidavit, and now non-relatives can use the affidavit. And she includes and defines a non-relative as anyone, any adult who has a familial or mentoring type of relationship with your child, such as, including but not limited to, teachers, medical professionals, clergy, neighbors, and friends. So, that's
okay. Let's hold up right now.
I want to stop.
This is so crazy. And I want you to paint a picture of what this looks like. So let's say that you have a little daughter who goes to public school, and there's a creepy neighbor, little pervert, who watches her go to school and knows about this. Paint the picture of what this could actually look like in terms of reality if this passes.
So the first 4 questions of the affidavit under 495 ask for the minor's name. I just want people to understand how low the threshold is for this affidavit to be accepted. The person presenting the affidavit only has to provide your child's name.
So he would know that.
He would know that. He would also know her birthday because he sees the birthday parties in the front yard and is creepy and comes by and gives her candy, whatever the case may be.
He's chatted you up. He knows her birthday.
Totally. The individuals, the alleged adult individual's name, and I say alleged, I'll explain to you in a second, and the individual's alleged address. With those,
which is just there's okay, and we'll talk about the vetting, but okay, alleged
name of the baby, of the child, birth date of the child, the person's alleged name, and that's the adult who's signing this, and their alleged home address. And the reason why I say alleged is because there's no identification requirement, none. Okay. With that, they can take the affidavit into your child's school, and they can unenroll your child in school or keep your child in school and authorize school-related medical care for your child. So that's physicals, that's mental health services. Some schools provide dental services. Some schools do immunizations. Some schools do counseling and therapy. So someone could be authorizing mental health services, for example, for your child in their school without you knowing. Why without you knowing? Because if they only are doing this first top part, there's no requirement that they check a box asserting or claiming under penalty of perjury that they tried to contact the parent. And also because on the back, it says a person who relies on this affidavit has no obligation to make any further inquiry or investigation. So the school providers and the medical providers who receive affidavits have zero legal obligation to inquire, say, how do you know the kid? This is very odd that you're coming in here. What happened to Mrs. Torres? They have zero obligation. So when people
creepy neighbor shows up to school a couple hours after you've dropped her off, your cute little daughter off, you dropped her off to school. Creepy neighbor shows up with an affidavit and says, "Oh, I'm brother-in-law and mom needs me to pick her up early. She has an appointment." School can release cute little daughter into creepy pervert's hands.
So number one, that. And people tell me all the time, why do kidnappers care? Why are kidnappers going to use this when they can just take your child off the street? Because when you drop your daughter off at 8:30 a.m. and he comes in at 12 p.m. and he has an affidavit and you don't come back until 4 p.m. after 3, let's just say 3 p.m. 3 p.m. to pick up your child. He now has a 3-hour head start on whatever law enforcement search that you launch to look for your child. Depending on where you are in the state, he could be in another state already with your child. That is why this gives kidnappers, human traffickers, pedophiles a leg up on you as a parent to identify where your child is, to locate your child, and to get your child back in your possession and care.
Ugh.
So it is a big deal. It makes it easy. Like, I hate that argument that people make, like, they already track us. Kidnappers can already kidnap our kids. It's like, seriously? So you just want to give them a piece of paper that says, you don't have to ask. You don't have to do any inquiry. You don't have to do, you need to accept this and hand my daughter over to this person who hasn't even presented a driver's license, a Costco card, a library card with his or her photo on it. How could that not be worse? How can that not be worse than your child probably not being kidnapped off the street because they're in the front yard of the schoolyard and the teachers are watching? How is this not worse for every single child in the state? Kidnappers will use this. And like you said, when you're talking to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old and they're playing while school is whatever, and you are an adult who is a professional child predator, you can get this information. And I know this from my work, and you can get it in 80 seconds. 80 seconds, you get their name and their birthday. Do you think any 6-year-old is going to be like, they're going to have every piece of information to then come in at lunch and take your child out of the school? I don't know. That's number one. That's just the first step. We're not even to the second half of the app.
Is it limited to schools, or where else can they use these affidavits?
So if AB 495 passes, then, so there's 8 fields basically. So the first 4 we just went over: take them out of school and or keep them in the school and authorize school-related medical care. So, I mean, even just a parent, for example, even just a parent who doesn't want to get their child immunized or get certain inoculations, then the ex's girlfriend comes in and he wants to get your child jabbed, and she comes in with the affidavit, and your child's like, oh, hi, Susie. And she authorizes jabs. And they're not going to ask any questions. And so now she's like, oh, hey, I heard there's a vaccination clinic. Here's my affidavit. And so I want little Bobby to get vaccinated at the vaccination clinic today. So that's another thing. It's going to happen super fast. And I don't know why people have to wait until something bad happens to their child. For us, this is my job as a lawyer. I'm supposed to look at these things and find out where it could go wrong. This is where it could go wrong. And why do we have to wait for the worst situation to happen? It's not going to happen to you or me right away. It's going to be happening to the most vulnerable that we should be protecting for and advocating anyways. And by the time people wake up to this and the lawsuits happen and we set aside the law, if it does become law, tens of thousands of children will be kidnapped, murdered, raped, disappeared with, and then we're like, oh, we won. It's like, we didn't win. That was like, we barely made it out alive, and some people didn't. Sorry. So if we keep going, here it says, and this is the new affidavit through AB 495, I'm a relative or not relative, because remember, we're going to use non-relative extended family member of this child, okay? And so the first part is any adult. Any adult. They do not have to be related for this unenrollment and the school-related medical care. But now, if you want to take this to any medical provider in the state, you have to be a relative to the 5th degree of kinship or a non-relative extended family member. So again, with those new definitions, that still means basically anybody, right? So if you keep going and you want to take this to any medical provider in the state, you have to claim your relative or non-relative extended family member, and then you have to check a box. Either I talked to the parents and I told them I'm filling this out, or
you check a box.
I check a box. Or right here, I am unable to contact the parents or other persons having legal custody of the minor at this time to notify them of my intended authorization. So again, you can say I tried, but I didn't get a hold of them. And again, they have no duty to inquire or investigate. Call me and say, hey, Nicole, did this person, they want to get your child this, that, and the other. They have no duty to do that. And the person is saying, I tried, I check a box. And then they put their alleged date of birth, and then they write their number of their identification card. But if no one has a duty to investigate or inquire, if this isn't getting filed with the courts, if this isn't part of a dependency proceeding, which is like a foster care proceeding or a probate proceeding because the parent has died and there's a case opening up about guardianship of the child, who is checking the number? It's not even a photograph ID. It's a number. They just have to come up with 9 numbers in their head, write it down, and now the medical provider has your child, and now that person can get any type of medical treatment. The relative or non-relative extended family member can get any type of medical care for your child.
That would include abortions. It would include vaccines. It would include mental health, right? It's across the board. They basically assume the rights of guardianship over your child. And you could be blind to it because this could happen during school hours right after drop off.
100%.
I've seen a lot. This one takes the prize in being so violent against families and against the like you said, the innate role of parents over their children, to open this door, to even suggest opening this door when we already have affidavits in place. What is the reason why the author says she's running this bill? Because it just seems so insane.
Because like you mentioned, and we've talked about this before, the Trojan Horse. Every legislative session, there is a theme, and that is the Trojan Horse, a very salacious, sensitive, controversial, polarizing theme, like Black Lives Matter, systemic racism, COVID, LGBTQ. Right now, it's immigration. So they choose a theme that's going to allow extremely dangerous, unconstitutional bills to just sail through the legislature without any opposition or very little opposition, because people don't want to be labeled as bigots or transphobes or racists, etc. So she is using the current Trojan horse of immigration and is saying we need to give undocumented immigrant parents who can be picked up off the street at any time tools to plan for the worst case, which is both parents get picked up in the middle of the day and their child is left stranded at school. She calls it the Family Preparedness Plan Act of 2025. Yes. That's what she calls it.
We call it the legislature's trafficking bill.
Yeah, it's a human trafficking bill. It is 100%. It is a license to. It's an affidavit, a license to traffic children, and to protect the commodity and to keep the commodity in circulation as long as possible. Because to your point, if I'm trafficking this child during school hours or after school hours, whatever the case may be, and I need to get her an abortion, or I need to get her on birth control, or I need her to be medicated so that she forgets or she doesn't remember or she's sedated or whatever, that's what this bill will be used for. It will be used for that. And remember, California is a sanctuary state. So according to AB 1066, passed several years ago, and Scott Wiener's SB 107, if a child is brought to California for the purpose of receiving gender-affirming care or sexual reproductive health care like an abortion, California Governor Newsom and his cronies have said, we will not extradite the child and the kidnapper.
Right.
We will not. This is what the law says in California. We will not honor the warrants, the subpoenas, the lawful orders and laws of other states. We will not cooperate with any law enforcement proceedings to remove the child and return the child to the home state. That's why if your child is being abused in whatever state you're in right now, he or she can be brought here, and with this caretaker's affidavit, which can be signed by anyone without proof of identification and taken all across the state, receive all sorts, every type of medical care. There is no exclusion, even surgery. It's a dangerous
Do you know,
pill.
can those affidavits, could they go to your church, your house of worship? Could they go to your kids' soccer practice? How far does it extend? Could they go to after school clubs? Or is it specifically those affidavits are used in school settings and in medical settings?
School and medical settings right now.
Okay. So if you're homeschooling and your kid is home with you, then you still need to get super, super loud against this, but you're not in the same line of fire that our public school families are in if this passes.
Right. And there's no exclusion from private schools. So I got this question in an interview before, and I read it. There's no reason why this affidavit cannot come into a private school. And the same thing can happen to private school students. Obviously, it's not going to come into your home and try and take your child from your home. But I think it's only a matter of time. And again, when there's no duty to inquire or conduct an investigation, and you are an after-school program provider, well, I guess that would be school-related, but you are a soccer coach and someone comes up and is like, hey, I need to take little Jimmy home because, here's an affidavit, then I don't see, again, I don't see why it doesn't say that it can, or it should be used, but it don't
Why
say
it wouldn't be
can't.
used.
And by the time you figure it out, your child is halfway across the state. The child is gone. So it's
absolutely
already
terrifying. Do you think that this actually has a chance? When I've talked about this to people, they're like, it's so crazy. There's no way it's going to pass. And even if it did pass through our insane demonic legislature, Newsom's not going to sign this. But we've seen him do this before, where he does sign stuff that we're like, there is no way. And then there's his signature on it. What are your thoughts of AB 495 actually getting through the legislative process and actually getting signed by Newsom and becoming law?
So I'm very grateful that we have started sounding the alarm. This bill flew. It was under the radar. It was kept under wraps, but it did fly through the assembly very quickly, limited policy committees. Because again, everyone's like, oh, it's an immigration bill dealing with kids of undocumented immigrants. We don't want to touch it. We want to protect them. And that's what happened there. Thank God, thankfully, we sounded the alarm through the Senate. And we are in this unique situation that we talked about earlier, where Gavin Newsom has stood up for the survivors, the child trafficking victims and survivors of child sex trafficking before, when he intervened on Shannon Grove's SB 14 and SB 1414. So I am hopeful if someone, you, me, probably not me, we're not that great of friends on Twitter, but if someone could get to him and explain to him the actual, like you just went through those scenarios of how this will enable child sex trafficking,
predators,
kidnapping, everything, that he should step in and encourage at least the Assemblywoman to pull the bill, to consider rewriting the bill. The bill is not necessary. The bill should be pulled.
Has he said anything, Nicole? Have we heard him say anything about AB 495?
No,
okay.
We have not. But by the same token, he's come out as such a vocal supporter of undocumented immigrants. We see the battle
Back
that he's
forth,
waging with the administration, the federal administration. So I don't know. This is a very unique bill, but I think if enough parents got loud, we called them out on Twitter. You guys, not in addition to calling your senators, you should be tweeting at them, asking questions, tagging them in all of these posts, saying, have you seen this? What's going on? So that when you go vote for them or don't vote for them again, you have the paper trail. I told you, I asked you questions. You never came out. And, I cannot vote for you again because I asked you and then you voted in support of this bill. So, we need to get loud also on social media because especially on X, that's where these legislators are. We need to call them out.
They do listen.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening and not watching, I'm going to show, this is a Substack article that Nicole wrote on AB 495. And it's so good. I reposted it on my Substack and I've sent this out to so many people because I'm like, you need to realize that this, I know it sounds crazy. I sound crazy explaining how insane Assembly Bill 495 is, but she did such a great job in this Substack. It's titled, Now You Cannot Say We Did Not Warn You, breaking down everything that we just talked about with AB 495, which this is, I think it's the supreme evil going through the legislative process right now. Where does that stand? What's happening next with AB 495? And why don't you share too what Pastor Jack Hibbs is planning to do with his rally?
So this too will be heard on Monday the 18th. So all of these bills all these bad bills are in the Senate Appropriations Committee, which is basically the end. If any of these bills have more than $50,000 a year impact on taxpayers, and they have to go to the Appropriations Committee. So it's going to that committee. It's very difficult to kill bills in policy committees. But again, we think if we can get enough people up there, whether it's to attend the hearing, voice their opposition to the bill, or to attend the rally with real impact, and also Jack Hibbs on the 19th, they are going to be there ready to go the next day to start walk you through, train you how to lobby, how to advocate for your rights and your children. And they will be holding a rally and hosting that the next day, because if these bad bills do pass the Appropriations Committee, we need to be ready for them to hit the Senate floor any day. Any controversial bill, they're going to ram it through. And then if it goes through off the Senate floor, it will go to Gavin Newsom's desk, to which we will turn this into a veto campaign. Gavin Newsom, veto these bad bills.
I thought I had printed out the next, the next days for like when all of this needs to be heard by.
Oh, and the legislative calendar?
Yeah, I had it all printed out, Nicole, and I'm looking through my notes now, and I must not have grabbed those. But is it August 26th? Is that when the appropriations committees have to hear
Yes.
these bills? Okay,
Yes, they
August
need
26th. And then September 13th is the last date for the floor vote, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then anything that does not get through that dies or falls asleep, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's just for those of you listening who are wondering kind of like the calendar we're up against. Those are the two big dates to think about. Is August 26th will be the next cutoff for these appropriations committees. And then September 13th will be the final floor vote on these. And then after that, it heads to Newsom's desk if it passes
Correct.
through September 13th's floor vote. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say about that before we close out with these two last bills? And then we'll kind of give the full connecting dot.
No.
Okay, let's move into this. This is more brief, but I do want you to just talk about Assembly Bill 1084 and then Senate Bill 59, which will streamline name and gender changes and seal court records for gender changes, and both are urgency statuses. So just give us a quick overview of what these are and how these bills privacy protections risk undermining, again, parental authority, and what dangers they pose for minors making irreversible decisions.
I know you want me to be brief. These little bills make me so mad because it makes the agenda so obvious, and it makes me mad when people think that we're crazy. And then it makes me terrified and sad for the children who will be kidnapped and whose identities will be erased, and who parents will have their children stripped from their homes and will have zero recourse. Currently, AB 223 passed last year. Christopher Ward, he's in LA. I say these names, you need to remember these names. He passed a bill that says an unrelated adult can bring a minor to a court and confidentially change that child's birth records last year. AB 223, it passed. Confidential is, okay. AB 1084 is Rick Zabur, it's his buddy. He's also in LA. Rick Zabur is now saying that those confidential proceedings where no one has to give notice, no one has to be noticed of those confidential proceedings erasing your child's name, gender, and sex, so their whole birth records will be scrubbed, their identity will be scrubbed, will be expedited. AB 1084 says these confidential proceedings will be done in less than 6 weeks.
Wow.
This goes exactly to my point of you are giving predators with AB 495 the leg up to hide your child and eat away at the time that the California Legislature is narrowing and narrowing. It is the perfect storm for quickly erasing your child and quickly eliminating any chances of.
Say that again, because I think that's really important for the audience to hear. What you just said, I mean, I have chills, but it gives a leg up for predators and very bad actors to erase your child off the map.
Yes, and completely eliminate any chances of you finding and returning them home.
Because the paper trail is erased.
It's erased. It's confidential, and then it's expedited. It just makes no sense. But to add insult to injury, here we have Scott Wiener just bringing in the caboose with SB 59, which says that now adults can seal their records, their petitions to change their name, gender, and sex identifiers, which again, these are just euphemisms for erasing your identity and then creating a new identity. This California, if these bills pass, will be a human trafficker's paradise. You now can erase children's records. You can erase your own records. You can claim that you're transgender and you want to change your name and your sex and your gender. No one will have an identity anymore. No one
because you can completely erase your history. So if you're
and rewrite it.
So there's the one angle of erasing a child, and then there's the other. If you are an awful person and you see this as an out to erase your history and remake yourself for round two, then you can use this to do that, to accomplish that, to rebrand who you are and remake who you are.
So the child and the perpetrator can erase his or her identity and his victim's identity.
Oh my gosh.
And it'll be expedited at least for the children. And again, going full circle, we have the bills where we have the schools that can now pervert your child, give them information and materials and have conversations with them that are inappropriate AB 1955 allows the teachers to keep secrets, actively keep secrets from parents. Your children are being indoctrinated. They're being alienated from you. They are.
Well, what about, let's take this a step further, Nicole, and let's talk about those AB 727 that we talked about with those ID cards. If you slap the Trevor Project hotline on the back of every student 7 to 12 in California, that number. So now you have a kid who's disturbed, confused, angry at parents, goes into the Trevor Project's hotline, goes into a weird dystopian little chat room with a master. Master convinces kid, hey, you actually are slave so-and-so, furry, whatever, and give me your birthday. Give me a couple little pieces of information. I can come save you tomorrow. That predator fills out an affidavit online and within hours has full access and guardianship of your child because they were waiting at 9 a.m. to pick up that confused kid. And then they start the process under Assembly Bill 1084 and SB 59 to erase the child and erase the perpetrator, and they have disappeared off the planet.
Yes. I don't know. Yep.
Okay,
demonic.
So this is...
It's demonic. It's not one bad bill. It's all, and don't forget, AB 84. So you think you can protect your kids. You cannot. If AB 84 passes, it forces your children into the, like she said, into the lion's den, into the gauntlet. That's why they want your children. I'm trying to stay as neutral and high level about this. It's demonic. They want your kids. They want them out of your home. They want them with the predators. They want to erase the tracks, and they want to abscond with your children and do whatever it is that people who want to abscond with other people's children do to those children. It's all of the bills. It's every single bill we've sounded the alarm on because we knew we would get here because we've been watching for 5, 6, 10 years. It's an attack on parents. It's an attack on children. And if we let these bad bills pass, they will win.
And it all ties together when you see it like that, when you see that they're pushing kids into the system is forcing them to see and be exposed to a trafficker's paradise, a pervert's paradise through the ID cards. Then you have the affidavits that connects the dots there. And then finally you have the erasure with Assembly Bill 1084 and Senate Bill 59. It all is fully connected. If you could summarize that, I know we've talked about it being a trafficker's paradise, but how do you summarize all 5 of those, the link up that we just discussed? What's the summary of what the end goal is if all of these pass in California?
I mean, I've called it California's human trafficking playbook. I think you just said it. I mean, you summarized it perfectly. It is a predator's paradise. This is the human trafficker's playbook. They have given them every single tool to take your child, abuse your child, and then erase the evidence, get rid of the evidence. It's all there, and expedite the process. They have given them every single tool to take your child, abuse your child, and get rid of the evidence at the quickest rate possible.
Legally.
With
legal protection. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a lot. And I know our listeners are going to probably be feeling like we are right now, where it's like a big kick to the gut. And it does make you want to start packing up to leave California. But we're not leaving. And we do believe that if we are loud enough and focused enough, we can defeat every single one of these 5 bills that we just discussed. So I want you to let our listeners know what they can do now and how they should what should their mindset be right now going into these next crucial few days through August 26th. What do we need to do? How do we arm up now?
We just need to share and get loud, like you said. Share this information with everybody you know that lives in the country. No child is safe in this country if AB 495 passes. So Everybody needs to get loud. They need to protect their children everywhere. Number one. Number two, get on social media and on the phones. You can leave messages on your way to work and on your way home from work when the offices are closed. And just every single day, it takes 2 minutes to register your opposition to all of the bad bills. You list them very quickly and ask the senator to vote no on the bills as well. Also do that on social media whenever you're bored. I know you guys are on social media. Tweet, ask questions, tag your senators, tag the governor, ask them to vote no or at the very least abstain on these bad bills. And then the last thing we need to be doing is submitting comments online, calling and emailing Gavin Newsom's office, asking him to intervene to protect the most vulnerable children in our country.
And I know people say, whenever I say contact Newsom, they're like, what? Like, why would we do that? Because he wants to be president? Because he needs to know that this is widely unpopular. Mm-hmm. Like, he is susceptible to knowing his own failures. And this would be a huge failure for him if he wants any shot at ever having the White House, which we don't want him to have. But we need to know that if you want to make it to the White House, like, this isn't the path. Like, you are going to lose a lot of people. Hey, I'm an independent. I'm a Democrat. And I am so opposed to that's what you need to say and communicate to him. Like, this will not speak to your party if this passes.
Absolutely.
And we've seen him veto things in the past and side with things in the past that we didn't think that he was capable of. So it is important to reach out to Newsom too. Okay. All of the information that Nicole and I just discussed, and thank you to everyone who made it through this entire podcast, because it is so important. And we tried to keep it in an hour. We almost made it there. But this is so important. And I wanted you guys to thoroughly understand the nature of the legislative season in California right now and what we are up against and how it's all connected. That's really what I want you to take away. And that's why I wanted to draw this all out with Nicole, is so you could understand that there is an agenda behind the whole game. This isn't just like a few random politicians like, wow, look how ironic. They all kind of connect and hold hands. Oh my gosh. No, it's intentional. It's driven by the same bad actors that we see again and again. Scott Wiener is one of the worst. And it's all a plan to get your kids. That's the plan in California, is to get your kids. Do we run and hide? No, I don't think we do. I think we get even louder knowing how absolutely demonic and out of control it is. And so all of the information that we discussed is going to be in the show notes. So before you go through the show notes, I really want you to share this episode. Subscribe wherever you're listening. Share this episode widely, widely, widely. Everyone needs to listen to it. When you send it to grandma and your sister and your aunt and uncle, let them know this is long, but it's really important. Listen to it while you're folding laundry, while you're making dinner, while you're cleaning up the kitchen. If it takes you 2 days to get through it, listen and then act. And all of the action steps are in the show notes. So I want you to go there. And then really important, I want you to follow Nicole, because Nicole, I'm not going to cry. I call you my sister because you are doing the Lord's work, and you're doing the stuff that I can't do because I am not an attorney, but I can amplify the work that you're doing, and you are doing such an incredible job. I am so, so thankful for you and for your work. So I'm just going to leave it open for you to share what you want to share to close us out and how people can follow you.
Well, thank you. I wouldn't be here actually without Britt. People don't know that, but she is a role model. You're my role model and my friend and my sister. But I thank you for all you do. None of us would be here without you, honestly. And just follow me on Instagram, Nicole Pearson, ESQ, and on X, Nicole Pearson, JD. Someone stole my handle. And Facts Law, Truth, Justice. So if you Google Facts Law, Truth, Justice, you'll find my Substack. You'll find our website with templates and letters, notices that you can download and then tailor for whatever horrible situation you might be encountering yourselves in. But really, I'm hopeful and I'm thankful for this opportunity, and for you, Britt. Thanks for everything that you do and for giving us a platform to share this information. So
we're gonna make it. We're going to hold out hope, and we're gonna fight like heaven against hell. And I'm going to hold out hope that we're going to win. So thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much.